In this video, we'll look at using for loops for counting and summing. Some of the things we'll touch on in this video is setup of counters, accumulators, and setting up the loop variable, processing with either user input or random values, and then combining criteria with that, and then what to do when the loop is finished. So we'll get started with this. I have a file set up already with an import statement and creating some utility objects. So right now it just outputs a statement. So let's say as a first example we want to count how many random values are odd. So we're going to say first we need to know how many inputs will there be, how many random values will there be. So number to generate, and we'll start with 10. We'll generate 10 numbers, and our range will be from let's say a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 100. So that gives us a range of 1 to 100. So num to generate is how many times we want to do this. So we set up a loop. One more thing that we need is a counter. All right, so this is setting up the counter. This is now another variable that you're going to use to keep track of the result. All right, and generally call it something like count. Count of, and then it's good to say what you're counting. Count of odds. A counter will always start at 0. Because before you start, you haven't counted anything yet. So you haven't, counter is 0. All right, so then you start the loop. So notice that you have to set up the counter, and this will be the same with sums. You have to set up a counter before you start the loop. And so now we have the loop, and the int variable, loop variable, all right, is now another new variable. All right, and we'll start this at 0 and say loop var less than num to generate, all right, and loop var plus plus. All right. All right, so this will give us a loop. All right, this will give us a loop that executes num generate times, whatever. In this case, 10. So let's get a value here. Value, let's call it the random value, just to be clear about what's going on here. Random value is the random generator dot next int range plus min. That's our formula for generating random numbers. You add 1 when calculating the range so that your range includes max and min. Then you add min when you actually generate the number. And let's just start by printing them to begin with. System out dot print line. We'll say randval is randval. All right, that's certainly enough to take a look at and see where we are. All right, so we compile and execute, and this is what we get. So we have 10 random numbers, all right, between 1 and 100. Let's dress this up a little bit and say which number we're generating. Randval number loop var is, and that's getting kind of long now, so I'm going to break the line. Notice that you have to split a line on a plus, right, if you're splitting a print line. Let's recompile. Rand val 0 is 30. So the loop variables run from 0 to 9. All right. Loop var never gets, well, it gets to 10, but when it gets to 10, 10 is not less than 10. So the loop stops and the program is over. But that is still, because I started at 0, that is 10 numbers. Count them there. One, if you start numbering at 1, you get the right number of things that we wanted. All right, so let's see if we can figure out now how to count how many of these are odd. So rand val is a number that we want to see if it's odd or even. Right, so I'm going to say if rand val, oops, not random, rand val, and how do you tell if something's odd? Now you take the modulus of 2, which is the remainder when you divide by 2, and make sure it's not equal to 0. Right, that means it's odd. That's a good compile point, actually. Whenever you put in braces after a header, that's a good place to just compile and make sure that you haven't made any mistakes in this part. Right, so we want to say, let's just say system.out.println. That's odd. Let's see if we're detecting odd numbers. Okay. 36, nothing. 85, oh, that's odd. Then we got a bunch of evens. 67, oh, that's odd. 13, that's odd. 56, nothing. Let's try it again. The nice thing about using random numbers, it makes it easy to run your program a lot, right? And make sure it's handling different cases. 13, no, these are all even. Oh, okay, 91. Okay, so we're correctly detecting odd numbers. All right, so we want to know, how many there are. All right, for this, we're going to use this variable, and we're going to handle it very much like counting can be handled very much like a loop variable when you're just going to count by 1. Right, so I can do the same thing that I do with a loop variable to any variable. But in this case, right, if something's odd, I want to take that loop variable and raise it by 1. That's odd. Okay, so we have all the output. So where's my result? Where's my result? Well, I have to have a statement that displays this value. Right, after the issue is where to put it. Right, so in general, if you're counting something or adding something up, you're going to want to do further processing. Even if it's just output, your further processing will follow the loop. So you find the close brace, right, that matches the open brace where your loop header is. So there's the loop header. Right, so there's the open brace, and you can see they're balanced off like that. Right, there's the if statement. If I put it here, I'm still inside the loop. Right. I want to go to the end of the loop and then say, now I can have display my result. Let's add a line ending at the beginning of that to separate it from the loop output. There we go. There were 1 odd values. Okay, so there's only 1 that time. Let's try it again. Well, this time it said there were 5. Okay. 69, 49, 87, 33. 3. So because you're generating random numbers, you should expect to get different results, right, every time. All right, suppose I also want to find the sum of the odd values. And instead of beyond just counting them, I want to add them up too. So that's a separate thing called an accumulator. And run out of time on this video, so that'll be in part 2 of this.